All right, we will be recorded, even better. Okay. Yeah, thanks for all the messages in the chat. Great to see that you are new here as well, Victor, Brigitte. Great. And actually with us is Hisben from the Media Innovation Center as well. Hisben, you want to say some sentences on behalf of the Media Innovation Center, or shall we just go ahead and start?
Let's go ahead and start.
Maybe just proceed and then he'll do the closing remarks.
Okay, perfect. Then let's do that. For those of you who haven't seen me yet before, my name is Marcus. I've been a multimedia journalist and storyteller with Deutsche Welle, Germany's international broadcaster, for quite some time now. I have founded two startups. One was a game studio, and I've been doing some serious games and news games, combination of journalism and games for some years. And after that, I founded a startup on augmented and virtual reality. And today, on the second day of the storytelling workshop, we will talk about these a little bit. But before that, let me just quickly start sharing some slides. Okay, so that we can start with a little recap to get the new ones on board and start asking questions if the ones who were with us yesterday do remember anything worthwhile from the workshop yesterday. Okay, can you see the slides now? Power of storytelling? Yeah, okay, that's cool. Then let me present to you day 2. Okay, and we'll start with a tiny little recap. So this goes out to the people who have been with us yesterday. If you remember anything from yesterday, feel free to just throw a word or two into the chat, and we can quickly get all on board. What have we done yesterday? Have you learned anything yesterday? Please let us know. I know it has been nearly 24 hours, okay? But maybe you still do remember something. Feel free to share in the chat. Okay, Kevin is throwing in an abbreviation that's BME. Fantastic. Does anyone else remember that one? BME? What's that? I'm happy if you just unmute your microphone and talk to us. That would be fantastic. What's the B, the M, and the E? Utter silence. Don't be shy, people. Okay. Sasha and Elizabeth wrote something in the chat as well. Okay, then let me just quickly recap. We talked about the BME, and that means the beginning, the middle, and the end. That sounds pretty obvious, right, for storytelling? Nevertheless, yesterday we learned a little bit about Aristotle, a Greek guy, 300 before Christ, and even he, back in the days, came up with a concept. So we talked a little bit about how important it is to drag people in right at the beginning of your story. Because if the best part of your story comes way later, probably most of your viewers, your listeners, your users will be long gone because your beginning was not dragging them in. Okay? And one way to do that is to use a concept called SLAT. Okay? SLAT, another abbreviation. SLAT stands for, excuse my language, should look at that. That's the SLAT. Okay? We should have a SLAT right in the beginning. Just think of a SLAT as a so-called thumb stopper. you're swiping and scrolling through content the entire day. And from time to time, your thumb goes away from the screen. That's a slat. And then you're like, wait, what's that? Maybe that's interesting. And hopefully you're hooked pretty early after 1 or 2 seconds. And then people dive into your story. And you should provide some sort of added value afterwards, okay? So what do I learn when I hear about your story? How do I feel when I hear about your story, okay? That's the slat. Elizabeth rightly says we talked about user-centered design. That's right. Because in the end, if you're producing content, a story, journalistic content, it would be quite nice if people consume your story, if they read it, they listen to it, they see it. That's right. So let's think about these users, because if you know a lot about them, you can make some wise decisions. I'll give you an example, because we talked about a fairly new app called TikTok yesterday, the most downloaded non-gaming app on the globe. And let's think for a second, and let's say you have this new format and it's designed for 70-year-old people in the countryside, okay? Probably it might not be the best idea to start with a TikTok account. Again, that sounds pretty obvious, but rethinking your target audience helps to shape and helps to frame your story. That's the user-centered design. We talked about the hero story, as Emmanuel rightly pointed out. What's the hero story? A pretty old concept on how to tell a story. So if you have a main protagonist and he or she is going through something and doing something and coming back as a different person, that's a story, right? So next time you watch a movie, you read an article, try to watch out for a hero story. A hero story makes it easy for people to digest your story. Okay, going back to the chat, Venta writes, the concept of using a layered style of storytelling. That's right, layered storytelling. Another buzzword, but what does it mean? So back in the days, you mostly had one layer of storytelling, right? An audio you're listening to, or you're watching a video. On social media, with younger users using their smartphones, there's going on a lot at the same time. We saw different sorts of layered storytelling where we had a visual element and where we had an audio, but they didn't really work together. But they were some kind of layered storytelling, and we discussed that and found out that sometimes the sum of the parts is more than just the parts. Other ideas of layered storytelling include different layers of video, making use of techniques like green screens, etc. Yeah, and we've been talking and watching some TikTok videos, so you definitely missed that yesterday, okay? So that was day number 1 yesterday. We talked about this classic edition of the storytelling toolbox, and we talked about the 21st century storytelling toolbox. And in the end, we were talking a little bit about pitching a story. And we will continue doing that in a second, and I will tell you why. Because if you plan on producing, writing, filming, recording or editing a story, it's a pretty good idea to have a clear idea about your story. For instance, to distinguish it from a topic, because that's crucial. Many people write articles on topics, but they're not telling a story. And stories are like a magic wand that make it interesting for people to digest. Okay. So what the heck is pitching? Pitching is selling your idea straight away in a very short amount of time. And you probably might have heard of some ways of pitching, because in the business context, there is something called the elevator pitch. Have you heard about the elevator pitch? Yeah? Okay. Can anyone describe what that is? What's the elevator pitch? Yeah, the idea is you get on an elevator and you meet some potential business partners, okay? And then you use the time you spend together in an elevator. These people cannot escape right now, okay? You should use that time and you try to pitch them, to sell them your idea or story. So how do you do that in a short amount of time? I will tell you in a second. But first, I would like to introduce another way of pitching a story, an even faster method. And this is the so-called match pitch. You light a match, it's burning, and it will burn your hand. So you don't have so much time, even less time. So how do you convince people about your story in a couple of seconds? So you really have to break it down and come up with something inspiring, intriguing, and you can train on hooking people in. So in a short amount of time, you should tell your listeners, your people in the elevator, what's the story? Why now? For whom is it? And to answer these three questions, that even takes longer than holding a burning match in your hand. But I give you some ideas what should be done. The first and most crucial rule is pitch a story and not a topic. And that's a mistake that many people do every single day because they're pitching topics. Oh, I would like to do a report about COVID and businesses. Okay. That is very broad. So lots of businesses are affected by the pandemic, for sure. But what's your story? Which story do you want to tell? Have you spoken to a specific shop owner who had to close down the shop, but is doing something else now, which is totally fine, working super, earning lots of money? That's a story. Okay. So be precise, and while doing research, choose something that's worthwhile telling. Okay, so there should be a certain relevance. Okay. There are many people doing research on COVID and the whole pandemic. That's right. But there's only a handful of people who have the relevance to really do something life-changing. For instance, there's a bunch of scientists in Germany, and they came up with a vaccination. So that is more relevant than talking to people who have been doing science on COVID like for many years without a result. So where's the relevance of your story? For instance, it could be a so-called Pass pro Toto. You tell the story of one shop owner, but many other shop owners would say, wow, yeah, that's just like my story. Okay. And of course, we've been already talking about that. Start with a shit look at that moment. And I come back to this image we talked about yesterday. So when a dog bites a human, that's pretty boring, okay? Unless the dog has two heads, that would be quite a slap. But if a human bites a dog, that's a slap. And I would go like, what? Wait, why? What is happening here? And then I'm hooked. And when you're pitching your story, make sure to end with a cliffhanger. So when you try to sell something, you should end with an open question or a question mark ahead of the faces of your listeners so that they want to read your entire story. If you tell your entire story and then case closed, all is done, then people are like, yeah, nice. So what's next? So leave something as a little cliffhanger, okay? That's pitching in a nutshell. We will actually do a little pitching exercise pretty soon. But before that, let me give you an overview on what we are up for today, okay? Here's the overview for day 2. We just finished our little recap. We will do a little pitching exercise and we will talk about next steps after pitching your story. And that is prototyping and storyboarding. Concepts that might be familiar to some of you, maybe not to some others. We will talk about that afterwards. And in the second part of today's session, after the first break, let's say like in 45 minutes, after that, we will talk about interactive content. We will talk about augmented and virtual reality, and we will talk a little bit about data, storytelling, and games. You see, a lot of stuff on our list. Hopefully enough stuff to inspire you to dive deeper afterwards. And as promised yesterday, of course, I would provide all these slides as a PDF afterwards, okay? So you can just sit down and digest and see if you want to dive deeper into some of these aspects. And of course, as always, we have enough time for some open questions if there are any. That's the program for today. Please let me know if you're okay with that. If you have any questions straight away, please, you can always just throw questions into the chat, but I'm happy if you unmute yourself and talk to us. Then it's a little bit more interactive than just me talking and talking and talking all the time. Okay? So, could I see some reaction in the chat? Are you okay with the program or any questions or additions? Okay, Anne has a thumbs up. Thanks for that. Vanta has a thumbs up. Great. Emmanuel has a thumbs up. Elizabeth is okay with that as well. Fantastic. Okay, good. Then let me just quickly go to the Google Doc. We were working with the Google Doc yesterday, okay? I'm sharing that with you now. And as you can see, we had a one-word takeaway yesterday, and we already started with a tiny little pitching exercise, because a pitch can always be started with the sentence, I want to tell the story of. And with the input I just gave you, stories, not topics, relevance, start with a slat, I would like to ask you to check out the link I just shared in the doc. Reserve yourself a space on this little table. Think for a minute, and then please give us some sort of a written pitch for a story you are working on, you have worked on, or you want to work on. Okay? So there's enough space on the table. I can add some more lines here. And I give you I give you 5 minutes actually to sit down, think about a story, and try to come up with a short pitch, a story, not a topic, a relevant story with a slat. Okay? So this is your little exercise. I hope you can all join the Google Doc, and I will mute myself and be back in 5 minutes, okay? Okay, thank you very much. I can still see some writing in the doc. Let's check out the doc a bit. Okay. So I want to tell the story of children living with HIV. Very good. This is a topic, right? Children living with HIV. What is the story here? So what we need here for a really good pitch is we need to be presented with a story. So will you tell the story of one child who is affected by that, but nevertheless has survived to do this or that? Do you want to start with a drastic image in the beginning? Do you want to tell the story of hope? You have to decide. And when you pitch your story, you have to tell me why. Where's the relevance? Of course, there are a lot of children living with HIV, so there's the relevance. But how will you hook people into the story? And what is the precise story you're telling? Okay. So it's good to be precise here. If you say, okay, I talked to this family and this is their story, then we have some emotion and we're ready to get some information. That's the way you should always think about your storytelling approach. Emotion beats information in storytelling. So give us some emotion, drag us in, and then we're ready to learn more about the topic. A person struggling with mental health while juggling family, work, and everything in between. Sounds great. I would love to learn more about that. But for a pitch, again, it would be good to be a little bit more precise. So who is that person? And what kind of mental health does he or she have? So we are interested more to learn more, because juggling family, that's pretty abstract, right? So what does family mean? Does that involve kids, several kids, a granny and an uncle as well? So we want to learn a little bit more. So we might be interested in the challenges this person faces. I think this is an interesting topic as well, but to turn it into a story, we need a little bit more of infos, okay? I want to tell the story of the boy who fought with a giant. Wow, okay. Definitely. That brings us back to yesterday when we talked about story plots. Okay, this is a universal story plot that is definitely going to work, but it would be great to be a little bit more precise. So think about this elevator situation. You meet a future editor in the elevator, and you go like, yeah, you know what? I want to tell the story of the boy who fought with a giant. And your editor would be like, yeah, nice. So what giant are you exactly talking about? Haven't seen one recently. So give us a little bit more information. This is definitely a great way to build your story, okay? Because people love stories like that. I want to tell the story of a human rights defender championing for an end police brutality in informal settlements in Nairobi, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic. Great. We already have a person. This can be our hero facing several challenges. That's good. Probably, again, for the pitch, it would be good to know a little bit more about this human rights defender, because it seems as if he or she will be the hero of the story. And each and every hero needs an attribute, okay? So what is this human rights defender like? Is he soft-spoken? Is he a bully and a fighter? I want to know a little bit more about the way he or she is championing, okay? COVID funds, of course, great. I think there are many stories here, but again, for now, this is a topic, okay? So you need to break it down and tell me a little bit more about, yeah, sure, but what is your story? What's your ankle? Food security and improved resilience to the changing climate. Great. Again, I would argue that's a topic, a huge topic. So how can you break it down to turn it into a story where people will not swipe or scroll away, but will be like, wait, I want to hear all about that. That cannot be true. Suicide in children. There's been a drastic rise in these cases recently. Yet again, a really hard and drastic topic, but worthwhile reporting. Again, as described here, it's a topic, okay? This can be the starting point of a research. So will you be telling the story of grieving parents or grieving friends? Or will you try to tell the story of a child who committed suicide and we learn more about the circumstances? These are different ways on how to tell a story and drag people in, okay? Musicians and drug use, story's old, but never gets boring. Again, a topic. So which musician are you talking about and what's the story? What happened? Because that musicians, at least some of them, take drugs. Yeah, fine, I've heard that. But what's your ankle? What's the story here? Okay. So for instance, don't know, if you have a musician and he just turned 87 and he has a history of taking drugs for 70 years, that's a story. And I want to learn more about that. I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with Madam Boss. Can anyone help me with that? Who's Madam Boss? Oh, Sasha, you have running words on my screen? Oh my God. I hope this problem has been solved by now. Okay. Anyone familiar with Madam Boss? Either way, I would need a little bit more contextual information on that for pitch, okay? Having a COVID baby, I see really good stories here, but for now, it's a topic. It's the start of a research. What is your exact story? Which one do you want to tell? What's the name of the baby? What are the circumstances? Okay. Female sex workers facing gender-based violence along the lake regions. Again, absolutely great topic that probably definitely needs investigation. But what's the story here? What's the ankle? How are you telling the story so that I'm like, oh my God, yeah. Do you want to tell the story through the eyes of an actual female sex worker? That could be a really strong story for me to learn more about the situation. Again, emotion and then information. I want to tell the story of a woman who's fighting incest in Kenya. Great topic for pitching the story. Who's the woman? What kinds of challenges is she facing? Give us a little bit more how successful she is in fighting. And then we would love to learn more about the story. Rise of gender-based violence. Yet again, very important topic, but you heard the story before. Where's the story? Okay. This is a huge topic from very different angles, but which one is yours? Which one is unique? It's a relevant topic, but how will you be telling a story? Have you spoken to people being affected, etc.? Okay, someone is elaborating Madam Boss a little bit. I really love that. So we can see that in real time. This is the story of a lady engineer who goes to the country and realizes it is a fallacy title. Okay. Okay. Very good. So now I'm way more intrigued than by just hearing Madam Boss. Thanks for that. Let's keep on continuing an African entrepreneur's journey of 1,000 thorns for single rose. Yeah, I really like that we have a hero here. Okay. And be aware, a hero is the protagonist of the story. It doesn't always mean that he or she succeeds in the end, but we have a protagonist and we can connect with him or her and learn about the challenges. So I really like that. A little bit more contextual information, what kind of entrepreneur would be pretty cool here to get a little bit more intrigued, okay? Abuse of blue pills amongst men. There has been an increase on the usage and death probably caused by the usage due to lack of guidance, correct prescription. Again, great topic. Now, where exactly is the story, okay? What cases have you observed? With whom have you spoken? What's the reason for this abuse? There's so many questions, but how can we be hooked in right from the start by telling the story of a specific man or several men? That would be good here. I continue revisiting Kenya's cultural practices and heritage, different tools, beliefs, communities used in the past, e.g. different circumcision knives used by different communities, different Afro-combs, beauty brushes, many Kenyan horns, masks, war heaters, and their meaning. Wow, I can see some fantastic images here, and it sounds really intriguing to me. With this, it's pretty broad, okay? So maybe you can pick out one thing about one specific mask or brush, and you can build your story around that, okay? So be precise for a start, drag people in, and then you can just lay out the entire topic. But I can definitely feel a story here. Two people who have decided to give love a chance. All-time classic. How romantic is that? That's a great one. Nevertheless, give us a little bit of contextual information. Why should we hear about that particular story? Okay? Because luckily, two people decide to give love a chance on a daily basis in many parts of the world. But why should we listen to this exact story? Okay. Is there something unique to that story? Or is there just something being nice to that story? So there could be an added value that people read that story and they just sigh and feel good and have a little good moment in the daily struggles. But that could be a really nice story. Everyday people in extraordinary situations. Yes, please. That's good. We have just this ordinary, everyday, common people, and suddenly they turn into some sort of heroes when in an extraordinary situation. Pretty cool. That's good. That's good for a story. Right now, again, please, little bit of contextual information. What's the story here? So pick one person and pick one extraordinary situation. And if you tell that one, people might be intrigued and start diving in deeper. Okay? Sorry, Anne, I only saw now that you wrote to the chat as well, a story that you're working on right now. Wow, that's even better. Okay? So then you can hopefully take some ideas for working on that story. Thanks to all of you who contributed. That's a great little exercise. You can do that if you want on a daily basis. to just train your storytelling muscle, right? So to just try and, for instance, when you're in the kitchen in the morning and another person is there as well, whoever that is, just try to tell your story, try to pitch it, okay? Just in the kitchen. Because if you are not able to convince a person in the kitchen in 2 or 3 sentences that this story is worthwhile telling, then the other people on the internet, they are not as forgiving, okay? They will just be like, no, let's move on. There's so many stories, I don't need that one now. Very good. Thanks a lot to all of you who were brave enough to pitch a little story. Thanks for that. And we'll continue just like that, because next step would be, okay, now I have a story. I've pitched something. How do I continue building my story? Okay? Because normally you do not just go outside, take your mobile phone and start filming stuff if you produce a video, for instance. Okay, Emmanuel asks, is it possible to list the things that need to be in a pitch? Just a rundown? Yeah, sure, absolutely. So I hope I did something like that. Let me check. Here. So biggest advice is story, not topic. You should always start with the relevance and with a slide. And you should answer these questions, okay? What's the story? Why do I need to hear it now? Again, what's the relevance, okay? So COVID, obviously, there's a relevance right now. 2 people falling in love. Why should it be top news in the newspaper tomorrow morning? Why now? Okay. And while thinking about that, it's always good to think about the for whom, like user-centered design. We've been talking about that. Okay. Okay. Anne asks also how to teach fellow colleagues the difference between an article and a story. Yeah, that's a really good one as well. So it always depends about where you're working, because everywhere where you're working, there are traditional ways of doing stuff, right? We have been writing articles like that forever. The thing is that no one would argue that it's a pretty good idea that more people will read an article, that more people will enjoy reading an article, read the article to the end, and share this article. And this is where the power of storytelling comes in, because you would include these little bits and pieces and would include it in writing an article, okay? It's nevertheless, it's a text, it's an article, but maybe next time when writing your article, you start with thinking about the story angle, and you start with thinking about answering these questions. What's the story? Why now? For whom? And I'm pretty sure that this article would be more enjoyable for your audience than doing it like you might have done it forever, like one core sentence, some info, some info, some info, etc. I will just encourage you to try out tiny bits and pieces to get to the, let's just say magic power of storytelling, because people have been hooked by stories forever. Parents have taught their children stuff by telling stories. You learn when you listen to stories. So why not apply it more when you're doing actual journalism? That's the idea here, okay? So, what was I talking about? Yeah, exactly. So now after you've pitched your story, I would encourage you to think about something called storyboarding. Are you familiar with that term? Emmanuel says yes. Okay. So just to finish on the pitching thing, okay? So because some have asked about if I could elaborate a little bit on the pitch. So just to recap that, because we've been going through that pretty fast. Just a second before we move on. So let's just go back to these slides and I will try to recap a bit, okay? So why are we pitching a story? To convince editors and other people involved to buy a story, to let us tell a story, to let us write an article, produce a video, produce an audio, okay? That's like, it's good to sell articles and it's good as a training method to learn more about storytelling on a daily basis. So you should always answer several questions in a pitch. What's the story? We have been seen with the examples that we have a lot of topics. Topics are everywhere, but you should think about your story angle. How will you tell this topic? What's the story? Why is it relevant? And for whom is it actually? Okay. These are crucial questions you should answer in a short pitch. What's the story? Why is it relevant? And for whom is it? Okay. 3 questions, and you should answer these. And these are the important things. Always think about a story, not a topic. Or if you have a topic, try to think about where in this topic is my story that I can tell people to drag them in to get them interested. Of course, your story should be relevant for your target audience. Okay? If it's relevant because I learned something new that affects me in my daily life, that's good. It's important to start with a strong image, a strong sentence, to start with a slide, to start with a detail or something unexpected, to drag people in. And it's always a good thing if you keep something, a little secret ingredient, your little cliffhanger, to keep that in the pitch or for your article, okay? So these are things that should help you train your storytelling muscle by trying to pitch stories, okay? Any more questions on that before we continue with a storyboard? Because it's pretty important to just get the point, and then you can just try that on a daily basis. I strongly recommend doing that in the morning, in the kitchen, or on the bus, wherever. You can do that on a daily basis and become an even better storyteller. Okay? So now, okay, yeah, it's clear now, right, Sasha? Thanks for that. I will talk a little bit about storyboarding now, and no worries, we will do a break afterwards because that's a lot of stuff to digest. Let's talk about storyboarding. Some of you have said, yes, I for sure know what a storyboard is. A storyboard is normally used when producing a film or a video, okay? And I want to suggest that you make use of this method and technique to prepare how you want to tell your story, okay? Because many times people have an idea about a story, and then they just start writing, they start filming video, they start producing, and in many cases, they miss out on important things. So it's all about preparation. It can be a preparation for something visual. It can be a preparation for something audiovisual. It can be a preparation for a text, okay? Many, many different ways, as long as you sit down after you've done your pitch and you make a little plan. How can I start? What comes next? What are the building blocks of your story? And this, of course, is crucial when we talk about visual storytelling, because if you have an idea what your story is, you need to gather visual material. And with that in mind, I want to introduce something and ask you if some of you might even be familiar with that. Have you heard about the 5-shot? Is that a visual concept that you are familiar with? Have you heard about that? Elizabeth says no and shakes her head. Okay. Then I will shortly introduce that one. It's an old recipe on how to tell a story visually. How to tell a sequence in 5 shots. And yes, this is video storytelling now, but I hope you get the idea, because it can be applied to other media as well. So let me shortly introduce that. And after that, we'll do a little break, okay? So if you own a smartphone or a camera, you can film with that, okay? And I'm pretty sure you might have done that before, okay? You filmed your kids, you filmed your, don't know, your wife, your husband, or you filmed a car. The thing is that all the people who own a smartphone can do that, but it takes some method and techniques to end up with material that looks professional. And the 5-shot is a very easy method how to tell a sequence. And for instance, it's a good way to start filming a report. Okay? I will give you an example here. It's from a pretty old textbook, but as you've seen yesterday, we've been talking about 20th century storytelling, 21st century storytelling, and not everything that worked back in the days is wrong these days. So let's check it out. What I'm showing you now is we're really going down to the 5 shots. That means when you use your mobile phone and you're filming something, 5-shot means that you take your phone, you film something for 10 seconds, then you stop, then you move somewhere else, and you film for 10 seconds, and then you stop. And afterwards, you have 5 single shots that can be edited together. Okay? So here is a pretty easy and simple example. The 5-shot is a recipe that always works when you want to tell the story of a person. Okay? So the first clip that we see is a close-up of hands. And that means you're not moving around with your phone, you're just concentrated and filming the hands. The first thing your audience will see are just some hands. Exactly, Manuel writes, it's a good concept for creating sequences. Absolutely. If you want to do visual storytelling, that's a pretty good way to approach that. So why are we starting with a close-up of the hands? Any ideas? Feel free to just throw ideas into the chat. Why are we seeing hands? Isn't the face way more important to see the eyes and connect to people? Shouldn't we see everything straight right from the start? Why hands? Any idea? Very good. Thanks for the answers. Action, mystery, to show the activity, it builds suspense. That's right. Hands up for action, body language. That's all right. We're seeing some hands and hopefully we get curious because we haven't seen it all. It's just some hands doing stuff and we haven't yet seen whom do these hands belong to? What are these hands exactly doing? So it might be a tiny little version of a should look at that moment. Of course, it's not a real one, but nevertheless, it should make us interested. Like, what is going on here? By just filming hands for 10 seconds. Okay, so that's shot number 1, close-up of hands. And we have 5 shots in total because that's the idea, 5 shots. The second one is a close-up of the face. Again, a close-up, pretty close. You can move around with your mobile phone, move your hands, move your feet, just come closer. And I will tell you why we're seeing the face now. Because if we're seeing a hand and afterwards we see a face, our brain will naturally combine them, right? Hand, face, that should be the hand that belongs to the face, to this man. Do we know that for sure? No, could be another face. But we think so because that's how our brain works. Close-up hand, close-up face must belong together. But we do not know. So, ta-da, third shot, it's a full shot. Hand and face. Oh my God, they belong together. There's so much dopamine in my brain now. I'm so happy that I was right about that. Okay, so close-up hand, close-up face, full shot. We've built this man. He has a hand and a face. And we have 2 shots left. So what do we do now? We do something called the over shoulder. From the safety of being in the back of that person, we look over his shoulder. What is he doing in this case? Okay. And there's a 4A. That means there's a 4B too. So what you can do as well is you can show us a little bit more the place where we are. Where are we? From behind the shoulder. Okay. So let's go to the 5th shot. We have a so-called creative shot. We could discuss the creativity of this shot. They filmed through the window. That's not like super exciting. Nevertheless, it takes our brain a couple of milliseconds to understand what's going on here. And with these 5 shots, we have a sequence and we have some visual storytelling and we have an always working recipe on how to establish a protagonist and how to start a video. Okay? Hands, face, full shot, hands and face, over shoulder, A, man is doing something, or B, where is he? And the 5th shot, the so-called wow shot. Okay? Why are we talking about that? We're talking about that because this is an easy recipe how to start a visual story. Okay? So you can tell your story now. For instance, when we're seeing these moving images one after the other, we could have some off text, like a narrator telling us, for 27 years, this man has been on this boat carrying 40 tons of metal. And after that, for instance, we would have this interview where he tells us, yeah, it's still fun. Probably that's not suited for TikTok, right? But it's suited for thinking about how to storyboard and how to start telling your story with images. Okay? I give you another example. If this man is a bit boring and dry to you, because I have been doing this workshop with a bunch of young journalists for a German television station. And they were pretty happy to play around with it. And be assured, it's a fictional example, okay? It's not real. But this is the first image, okay? Does that work? Do you want to continue watching this little video? It's a hand with a knife, okay? I'm intrigued. I want to see more. And now I see this face. She's not looking very happy being in a parking lot with a huge knife, okay? So you see some suspense happening here, and it gets better. This is the third shot, the full shot. Face and hand and knife. Fourth shot should be the over shoulder. It's an action shot, so it's more like a beside the shoulder. Never mind. But let me introduce to you the wow shot, okay? And that's a wow shot for sure, okay? We can already hear the interview afterwards. I had to kill him. He was nasty or something like that. This is just a fictional example, but you get the idea because this is some pretty good storytelling on a visual level, making use of a very simple concept, the so-called 5-shot, okay? And of course, we're coming back to storyboarding. You can plan something on that, like that on paper. You just sit down and you think about what's my first image? How do I start my report? What do I need to see? The hand of a baby, for instance. That could be a really, really strong picture for several of your stories. The COVID baby or the HIV kid, the hand of a baby holding a mother's hand or something like that. Strong emotional intro to your story. Just an example. And with that, with so much input, let us break for 10 minutes and I see you back. I hope you get some fresh air or a glass of water. And in 10 minutes, we will be back. Okay? See you in a bit.
Hi guys, my name is Caleb. I'm the Communications Officer at the Media Innovation Center. And I'm super excited to let you know that we've done our call for applications for our Innovators in Residence program. Now, since 2019, we've done 2 calls. First one, we onboarded 2 teams, and the second call, we onboarded 3 teams. But this year we're doing it a little bit different. How so? Daktari, tell them why.
Thank you, Caleb. Hi, my name is Jackie Chege, Director of the Media Innovation Center at the Aga Khan University. Like Caleb rightly mentioned, this year we're not taking 2 or 3, but 9 teams of media innovators. Yes, 9 teams. Exciting, right? Out of those 9 teams, 7 slots have been reserved for innovators working in rural communities. That is in the spirit of inclusivity and diversity, meaning that this time tunaenda mashinani.
9 teams, that gets me so excited. The support that we give all our startups is huge, beginning with a fully furnished office. Secondly, we give world-class trainings, mentorships, and coaching to all our teams. Thirdly, but definitely the icing on the cake, is $20,000 for each of our 9 teams. I really can't wait to see your ideas.
There you have it. I told you we're doing things differently. 9 teams, $20,000 grant each. Very exciting stuff. So visit www.mediainnovationnetwork.org to submit your application. Remember, you have until the 31st of August before the deadline. Apply now.
everyone, my name is Jackie Shege. I work as the Director of the Innovation Center, GSMC at Aga Khan University. I'm here to give you some tips and tricks for submitting the winning application for our Innovators in Residence program. Number 1, always read and understand the provided guidelines. In fact, read them twice to ensure that you give us exactly what we're looking for. Number 2, always substantiate a statement with some evidence. For everything that you tell us, ensure that you give us some numbers, some statistics, and some research to back what you're saying. Remember, numbers don't lie. Number 3, make it easy for us to read your work. Don't be too technical, don't use so much jargon, and definitely don't use some difficult English words. Make your application simple and easy to read. Remember, always show, don't tell. And don't forget to submit your application.
My name is Hesbon Hansen Ochieng-Wila. I'm the Research Associate at the Graduate School of Media and Communication here at Aga Khan University. I'm here to give you a few tips on how to make your application for the Innovators in Residence a great application. Number 1, read and proofread your application. Take your time to ensure that there are no spelling or construction mistakes. Number 2, don't be a last-minute applicant. Put your team together. Delegate if you have to. Give people enough time to work on the application. It is important to have that time to do the right thing in making your application great. Number 3, look at your application, the idea against viability. Investors, sponsors, and partners today are not just looking for great ideas. They are looking for ideas that are viable. And in your application, that's all you need to demonstrate the commercial viability and sustainability of your idea. Once you're done, send your application here. Hi guys, welcome to the Media Innovation Center here at Aga Khan University. My name is Hesbon Hansen Ochieng-Wila, and today we are going to take you through the application process for our Innovators in Residence program. Karibuni. WhatsApp is our first offline application option. Hi guys, welcome to the Media Innovation Center here at Aga Khan University. My name is Hesbon Hansen Ochieng-Wila, and today we are going to take you through the application process for our Innovators in Residence program. Karibuni. WhatsApp is our first offline application option, and it is very easy. Send a request form to our office number +254 780 993 137, and our communication officer will respond by sending you a Google form that you'll use for the application. Once you receive the questions, read them carefully and answer them in a separate sheet. Once you're done, open your WhatsApp and begin typing. Question and answer. Then click send. Our communication officer will then fill in your answers to our Google Doc and submit. You see? Very easy. My colleague Claire will explain the other offline options.
Thank you, Hesbon. Hi guys, my name is Claire Mogere, and as explained, I'm going to show you other offline options of applying for the Innovators in Residence program. If you cannot access internet or WhatsApp, You can drop off your application at our drop-off centers in Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania. Visit our social media channels for tips on application. And don't forget, the application deadline is 31st August. We look forward to receiving your applications.
Habari, kwa majina naitwa Tulinago Mwampanga. Mimi ni community manager wa Media Innovation Center iliyoko chini ya Aga Khan University. Sasa leo na habari njema. Nataka nikuonyeshe ni namna gani ni rahisi zaidi wewe ukiwa mbunifu katika tasnia ya habari unaweza ukatuma maombi yako kwenye programu yetu ya Innovators in Residence ambayo I'm sure utakuwa umeshaisikia. Sasa basi nataka nikuonyeshe namna gani ni rahisi na ni haraka zaidi unaweza ukatuma maombi yako. Njoo pamoja na mimi. Hatua ya kwanza, unaenda kuangalia moja kwa moja kwenye tovuti yetu ambayo ni media www.mediainnovationnetwork.org. Mimi huwa naitembelea mara nyingi sana, kwa hiyo imetokea hapo mara moja. Kwa baada ya hapo unasubiria, na ikishafunguka jambo la kwanza inatokea ni hii tangazo letu lina pop up, kwa sababu sasa hivi tunakaribisha wabunifu mbalimbali katika tasnia ya habari kuweza kutuma maombi yao. Kwa uta click popote pale, itaenda kukuletea maelezo zaidi kuhusu hii programu yetu ya Innovators in Residence, lakini pia namna gani unaweza ukatuma maombi yako. Kwa kuna lugha ya Kiingereza au Kiswahili. Na kwa lugha ya Kiswahili unaminya hapo kwenye Kiswahili, inakuletea hii form ambayo ina maelezo yote kuhusu hii program, unafanyaje, nini utanufaika nacho, maelezo ni mengi zaidi na namna gani ya
Very good. Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed this little break and could digest all that information we were talking about. If there are any questions concerning the storyboarding or the 5-shot, please let me know, because next on the list is yet again a tiny little exercise for you. Okay, Helen writes, how do you tell the story of a character whose identity you can't reveal, like a young child living with HIV or a victim of abuse who's still at risk? Which kind of shots would you use? Thanks for the question, Helen. That's a fantastic question because, yeah, that might apply in many situations. What do you do when you cannot show the person in full? What you can, of course, do is you can apply a bunch of these 5 shots, okay? For instance, if you take shots where you cannot identify the person, you can take the hand, you can take like the over shoulder where we just see the back of the head, or you apply different other shots where we cannot see the face. That could be something that can be used here. Okay, so depending on the level of anonymity that you're aiming for, you can use some of these shots to tell the story. Okay, and what you can as well do is if you're filming and you have as a protagonist a young child, then of course, besides the detail shots, you can film a group of kids from the back so that we just see like kids and can connect, but of course not identify. Okay, I hope that helps you, but we can definitely in the next little exercise think about that too. Any more questions? Feel free to just use the chat. Otherwise, I will introduce the next little exercise. We'll do one more exercise, and then we dive deeper into the whole notion of interactive content, interactive storytelling with AR, VR, games, data, and all that in the remaining time. But to just finalize what we've been doing concerning 5-shot and storyboarding, I would love to build up a little bit on our pitching exercise. And if you're brave enough, you can use the next, let's say, roughly 7 minutes to draft the first sequence of your story. Of course, for now, we're sticking to video, but of course, for now, if you see these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 little squares here, I want you to use text, of course, okay? So if you have pitched a story, take a moment and think about your first image. How do you want your video, if you're aiming for video, how do you want that to start? For instance, you can write here. It would not be enough to write hand here. That's for sure. But give us a little bit more contextual information. But of course, you can use words to describe it. So you have the very first building blocks of your story for us to check out. Okay? That's the little exercise now. There are many of these little bits and pieces here. You can just take one and start typing in ideas for very first sequence, okay? Is this exercise clear, or do you have any questions concerning what to do now? Utter silence. People, are you still with me? Could I see some hands? Or am I talking into a hole and you're long gone? Blessing you there, Victor, you're there. That's cool. So, Maureen got a hand. Thanks for that. Vanta has a hand. Brigitte is there. Very good. So is the exercise clear to all of you? And you have already started to think what to write here? That's good. And I just leave you with this little exercise for, let's say, 7 minutes, okay?
Sorry, Marcus, would you recap about the instructions? Sorry, I had some fluctuations of the internet. Sorry.
Yeah, no worries. Of course. So what we will be doing now is we will build up on your very first pitch idea, okay? So we were pitching stories here, and the idea now is to take the input concerning the 5-shot and the storyboard to come up with a very, very, very first rough prototype storyboard here, okay? So you can take one of these columns and, just like a person here is doing, give us a written description on what are we seeing in your very first shots. How do you want your story to start? Okay, that's the little exercise here. And with that, I'll leave you alone for a couple of minutes. Let's say we'll talk about it 11:47 to be pretty precise. And take a moment and think about, how do you want your story to evolve? How do you want to tell it? Speak soon.
Sorry, I'm slightly late. What are we doing, Marcus?
We're in the midst of an exercise. It's all about setting up a very first storyboard. So when you check the Google Doc, you can see colleagues already typing in their first shots, how to begin the story.
Do you use your own story or use what you've written?
No, it was all about the story that you pitched, actually. So
Okay,
if you
okay,
pitch a story,
excellent.
you can just think about the first shots, how to tell that story. Okay?
Okay, apologies. Sorry. Okay.
Okay, cool. I see many of you writing, so I give you another couple of minutes, okay? Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for doing the exercise. It was great to see some stories coming to life in real time. Let us take a moment to quickly check what we have so far, okay? I'll read out the first story. Close-up shot showing a hand holding a trophy with year 2500's winner. A cloudy facial expression close-up shot from below. A back shot showing a man walking on narrow, dusty road. A wide back shot with a team of people clapping from a small room. A side table view showing piled up bills, trophy, and the man leaning on the desk, expressionless. Zoom shot of the award focusing on the word year 2500's winner. Oh my God. That sounds like a Hollywood movie already. Could I see some feedback? Who would continue watching this very first story in the year 2500? Any reactions from the crowd? Would you continue watching this little story? Because I'd rather do. Sounds great from a start. Okay, it's built up from an entrepreneur's journey. Okay, Brigitte and Anne say, yes, we would definitely keep on watching this story. Very good. Thanks so much. And we're just zapping through today's television program. Here's the next one. Establishing long shot of a person facing a fresh grave. Medium shot overhead showing a woman and the cross on the grave and the withering flowers. Close-up of cross on grave with inscription of the child's name and year of birth. Close-up of mother's face expressing her emotion. Close-up of her withering flowers on grave. Extreme close-up of the child's name and dates of birth. So would you continue watching that one? Blessing says yes, and I say yes too. And you see, again, that's the power of storytelling. It's only words, but already in our head, we have some sort of an image, okay? Very good, thanks for that. Close-up of a baby's rattle on the ground. A hospital bed with someone in it with an, what's an IV in their hand? Okay, with an IV in their hand. A medium close-up of mother's hands holding a baby. The sign for the ICU. A positive COVID test. A birth certificate with the words blurred. Okay. I think we are all set. We know where we are and we can already guess what the story is. I think that's a good start as well, especially with a close-up of a baby's rattle, okay? In this environment of an ICU. Very good. So, next on the program, Madam Boss, a story of a lady engineer who finds out this title is a fallacy. The lady's hands on the armchair. The lady's face and hands as she rotates on a chair. The lady's face as she realizes this chair is taking her backwards rather than forward. The lady walks away from the chair. Madam Boss begins a journey to the city to study a course. Okay. Again, great starting point. Very visual thinking going on here. I can already imagine how this story starts. And now let's see how it continues. I'm intrigued. Thanks. A close-up shot of a man holding spoon and fire stick. A face of a gentleman looking at the spoon. We'll be back with this. Okay. Shoulder shot, a man sniffing cocaine. Oh my God. Wow shot of a man blacked out. Okay. I hope this story is not over yet, but we get the idea. Okay. Don't do drugs. Children playing in a playground. One child crying, coming out of the house. The woman who is fighting incest in Kenya with a hand around the crying child. The woman and child in hospital, then at the police station. The woman and child in court. What I like very much about that is that you're giving your hero, the woman who is fighting incest, you give her an attribute right from the start with her hand around the crying child. She's taking care. When you describe the woman and child in hospital, then at the police station, in a storyboard, you would split up these sections because in one image, you will not be able to show the woman and child in a hospital and at the police station. We need some establishing shots to establish the situation in the police station. But this is a great starting point to understand how your story is evolving. Thanks for that. And we have another one, medium close-up of athletes' running shoes. Okay, always good. Close-up right from the start. What is going on here? Close-up of running athletes sweating on their faces. Okay, sounds like a classic 5-shot. Drone shot of the track field with athletes running. Wow, pretty cool. Side shot of the bell ringer with athletes passing by. Close-up of the crowd cheering. Wide shot of the finishing line with the athletes approaching the finish. Okay, yet again, very good visual thinking here. Thanks for that. I could already see the beginning of the story in my head. Pretty good. Well done. Thanks for all of these examples. Thanks for participating. And hopefully you got an idea how useful it is to, first and foremost, have a story, not a topic, and then how to start telling this story by doing a plan. And the 5-shot can help you all along the way. Thanks a lot. Are there any questions left concerning pitching or storytelling or the 5-shot? Anything that we should elaborate here? Then please let me know. Okay. Yeah, thanks for the nice feedback, Anne and Marcella. Very good. And we're not even yet done, okay? Okay, thanks, because what we've been doing now is prototyping and storyboarding. Check. Still on our list is the section interactive content. Unfortunately, due to the time, it will not be this interactive in the presentation, but just as promised, I will provide you with the slides as a PDF. I will upload them and put the link into our shared Google Doc, okay? Probably by tomorrow. So you can definitely recap and check out, okay? Good. So if there are any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, I will give you a little insight in this whole huge topic of interactive content. I prepared a bunch of slides and we can check out some examples. It's a huge topic, but we can definitely start and jump right in, okay? I need to change the mode of the slides because they include interactivity. So please don't be irritated that you see the following slides in this presentation mode. I'm just continuing anyhow. So a lot of stuff to tackle when it comes to interactive content, okay? And basically, I'm not sure if you have yet seen different examples of this so-called augmented reality journalism. Does that ring a bell? Have you stumbled upon this word, AR journalism? Is that something that sounds familiar to you? No? Okay, no worries. Let me just quickly check and find an article I wanted to share with you. I might do that later or just straight away. No, I think I will just throw it on the document a little later. So then let's talk about it a bit. What's that? AR journalism, of course, means augmented reality and applying that in the context of journalism. But what do I mean by that? If you're using your smartphone, you probably might have seen some augmented reality effects. In fact, I am applying an augmented reality effect right now because, as you can see, I blurred my background because it's not that interesting. It rather looks a bit sad, so I just blurred it. So this computer is actually able to distinguish between me and the background is a bit blurry. So this technique of doing digital things on our surrounding, that's basically augmented reality, and several media companies have been using that. One of the first actually was the New York Times. The New York Times has an app for their newspaper, and with that app, you could apply augmented reality effects to your living room. Let me give you an example. For instance, they started with this little object, you know, where you can buy a newspaper, this little news box, news booth. With your mobile phone in your hand, you could just put this digital object somewhere. Of course, that's not journalism, that's just playing around, but this is just a first basic idea on how storytelling might evolve in this sector, okay? Let me give you another example, which I find quite cool, because the New York Times has not only started putting some random objects somewhere, but they have actually done some pretty cool news reporting. On the New York Times app, you could check out different air pollution levels between cities, okay? So, for instance, in the app, on your mobile phone, wherever you are, as long as you have an internet connectivity, you could choose between different cities. For instance, here we are in New Delhi, in India, and they had these little digital dots that showed the amount of air pollution. And I think that's some pretty cool and decent reporting when you add a new layer of information to the space around you. It might not be useful for all the things, but this is still early days, trying out new ways of doing journalism or storytelling. Because right now, most people on the planet are consuming media on their mobile phones, and mobile phones have more and more capabilities of doing things like these. And yet again, because we're talking about current and future stuff, just imagine we are probably in the years to come not limited on doing that on a mobile phone, because you still need to move around with your mobile phone. But just imagine if that would be possible on a set of normal looking glasses. Oh, thanks, Ed. Thanks, Anne. You're in renewable energy. Pretty cool. Okay, so just imagine, okay, some of these glasses are already available, but it's not like the mainstream gadget you get at every corner, just like the smartphone, okay? So in fact, there have been and there are several glasses that can already start to project information in your field of view. For instance, there was this glasses by a company called North. It actually closed down because they were pretty early. It just feels more or less like normal glasses. But what it can do, it augments information, digital information in your field of view. For instance, if you want to go somewhere or get an Uber or taxi, of course, your telephone knows what to do now, show you the way. But these glasses can do the same, okay? So they augment things in your field of view. This sounds pretty science fiction, but it is obviously possible these days, and it's showing a way for the, yet again, coming years if the smartphone will probably not be the main device. May that be in 5 or 10 years or even afterwards. The first baby steps are already here, as you have seen with the New York Times. And the possibilities are pretty endless when you think about how walking around could evolve. I found some demos. These, be aware, are not yet existing in reality. But when you go to the museum, maybe in the near future, something like this could happen. Okay. Again, looks like science fiction. This is not journalism. I know that. But just to give you an idea what walking around in the near future could be like. Because digital effects and objects can be put on the layer of reality that we call reality. I like this example as well. There are many apps right now where you can take random objects, random animated objects, and put them somewhere. Yet again, I know, not journalism, but pretty frightening when you sit in a plane and you have glasses on and you look out the window and you see this fellow saying, hi, okay? And then there's things like this app. It lets you try on sneakers on your mobile phone digitally. You just scan your feet and you see these shoes on your mobile screen. They are not there in reality, okay? But you can nevertheless choose different kind of shoes. Again, not a journalistic example, but this will, of course, change the way we shop, especially in times of the pandemic. Why go outside when you can just do stuff like that? And probably in the coming years, it will change the education sector as well. What do you make of a learning book that works like that? You open it, and then you just have the full globe and get way more information in a 3D kind of manner. Yeah, Blessing, thanks for writing to the chat. I've seen some universities give virtual campus tours with augmented reality, and also crime scenes have been reconstructed like this. Exactly. So police work is changing as well. They're just scanning a crime scene with huge cameras, and then they can move around in a virtual version of this crime scene to find out more. Okay, So if you're interested in this kind of stuff, there are several articles on that, and you will again and again stumble upon a word called spatial journalism. Okay, not sure if you have heard that word. Why are we talking about spatial journalism? Because wherever you are, you can put objects and information to your surrounding. Sometimes it's a bit gimmicky, but sometimes it's really useful and probably showing a way for future storytellers to tell stories. Right now, if you want to have an easy way to get on board and try things out, I recommend 2 programs, okay? Because Facebook and Snapchat are both heavily invested in these AR effects. And actually, TikTok is stepping up and currently building an easy tool to produce first AR filters, okay? So what you can do is you can just easily in a computer download Spark AR Studio, for example, and then you can very easily start to build very first things. While talking, Emmanuel is sharing a video. Very cool. Let me just quickly find it. Okay, there it is. I just need to change that. Let me see if I can just share it to all of you. Yep, there it is. Okay, it's by #OurStories.
I met a woman forced into sex slavery, and one of the main reasons for that was climate change. She was from a West African farming family, and after years of poor rainfall, had to move from farms to big cities to try and find work, and it was there that she was human trafficked into sex slavery. But it was a drought that initially made her leave home, and millions of young people around the world are moving from farms to cities and even moving countries because of the adverse conditions caused by climate change. The United Nations just released a report calling a code red for humanity. And here's 3 things you need to know. 1, climate change is taking place a lot faster than scientists anticipated.
Okay, cool. Thanks a lot, Emmanuel, for this example. So you get the idea, person doing some actual reporting, and we have, again, some additional information being augmented to the scenery. If you want to try out stuff like that, let me explain 2 things to you. The first is there is an app called Giphy World. It's currently available, unfortunately, only for Apple devices. So if you happen to have an iPhone or know someone who has an iPhone, you can try and download this app. I just sent you the link in the chat. And what this app can do is, as you can see here, it adds different digital objects to your surrounding while you're filming. So for instance, if you want to report about Elon Musk and other billionaires flying to the moon, you could just use this app and put a digital moon on your hand, okay? And you just do a piece to camera. As we've seen, Elon Musk and the others want to go to the moon. And then you have like a digital moon on your hand. Fairly simple. You can just start doing that straight away. All you need is an app like that. If you were wondering about these strange glasses this guy in the video was wearing, this was a pair of so-called spectacles. Spectacles is the hardware product of the company Snap that's responsible for Snapchat. And they have different sorts of sunglasses that include little cameras. And with the 2 latest versions of that one, you can as well augment things into your environment. And now things get a bit crazy. So you have these sunglasses on, you have a little button that you can push and you can film your surrounding. first person view. And this sunglasses is as well able to put other digital objects on top. Okay. So the latest version looks a little bit sci-fi, but the older versions pretty much look more or less like, let's say, normal, more or less normal sunglasses. I myself played around quite some time with, I guess, the second generation, and it was pretty cool because with all these videos on your glasses, you can just transfer them to your smartphone, and you can very easily publish them to Instagram, Snapchat, or use them for your normal video storytelling. That's pretty cool as well, but we're already starting to mix things up a bit. But whatever. Thanks for the link, Emmanuel. So you see, it's not just like future talk, because these applications and this hardware is available right now. To be a bit more hands-on, if you want to play around with another aspect of this exciting new interactive content, I give you another example of things that you can try out. Blessing writes, these snap spectacles could be very helpful in journalism. Absolutely, same, my opinion. I'm wondering why not more journalists or big media houses who can afford them are not testing them. I just don't get that, because it's quite cool to have this additional footage. You just have these glasses on, you tap on them, and then you can record a short video in good audio and video quality. Yeah, especially in cases where they're not able to carry cameras. I've seen some examples of people, for instance, just take the situation, you're doing a cooking tutorial, right? So you can just do that on your own. You're just pressing the camera and doing something with your hands looking down. That's it. You have a video and that can be used. You do not need an additional person to hold an additional camera, etc., etc., etc. Or for doing interviews, I just look at you and record a short statement. That's pretty fast and pretty straightforward. Okay, so we're jumping around a bit here. I want to talk to you a little bit about 360 degrees. You might have heard with all this VR stuff, virtual reality, we are looking around and we don't have a flat screen, but we have a 360-degree photo or video. And I want to show you a very, very, very easy and fast way to produce a 360-degree photo, okay? All you need is the Google Street View app, which is available for both Android and iOS. So if you have the Street View app, you can very easily, in that app, start producing 360-degree photos by just, it's called stitching, by just stitching photos together. In that app, you find a little camera icon and you can produce 360-degree photos. If you want to try that out, easy and fast. Okay, Kai writes, I love the word you used, explore. I think every media house needs a couple, especially local houses. Yeah, absolutely. What I think is a really good idea is to try and explore things to find out where all this is taking us. Because while I guess you are aware of Google Street View, are you aware of Google Earth as well? Are you familiar with this tool, Google Earth? Yeah, okay, good. Because I want to show you something. Google Earth, basically a website. You need a Chrome browser to fully explore it. It's like the entire digital globe on your computer. Okay, it's great for doing research. Let me just quickly share it. So if you go to the website, you have the entire globe, and we can fly to Nairobi in Kenya. Okay, let's see how that goes. So there's Nairobi, and of course we can go in and check it out. Okay, that's one thing. What I wanted to show you is something different, because 360-degree photo and video is nice, but what about further applications? Okay. Has any one of you tried these bigger VR glasses by Oculus, a company that was acquired by Facebook? Have you already tried out these? Anyone? No. Writes blessing. If you wear these, you put them on, you have these little controllers, then experiencing Google Earth is lifted up to a totally new level. Okay. Sorry, that was the wrong button. I just want to show you this video. No, that's the wrong one. I want to show you this video. Okay, so Blessing writes, I've only ever seen them used in gaming. That's right, but just imagine the power of storytelling you can use here if you can take the entire globe and fly around on the globe. How cool would that be if for certain stories in different parts of the world, we would just fly there and check out the situation and learn so much more about the planet, okay? So I think this is a lot of stuff that is going on in this direction. If we yet again want to break it down a bit when it comes to storytelling, if you do not have these devices right now, if you have no users that have all these hardware and software back at home, there are still a huge and different ways on how to do interactive stuff, do immersive stuff in the browser, okay? Emmanuel writes, immersive storytelling at its best, need to master this to incorporate it in the workflow. Absolutely. Of course, it's way easier to write an article than to produce something like that. This is why I wanted to show you entry points. For instance, Google Street View, the app, you can produce an easy 360-degree photo, upload it to, for instance, Facebook, where people can explore this photo, or this Jiffy app, where you can very easily on your mobile phone use it to add digital objects to your filming. To get you a bit hooked, I want to show you two more examples by the company I've been working with, because our approach to do full AR and VR, well, it was big, the approach, but in the end, we found out that media houses right now prefer doing stuff in the browser, okay? So what we did is we used the 3D material that we built together with guys normally working for computer games. We used all of that for doing storytelling on a normal browser, on a computer. And just let me give you an example. In Berlin, the German capital, they have been spending a lot of time to come up with a new airport, okay? The plan was to set it up in a couple of years, and then it took 14 years to finalize the thing. Many, many problems. So what we actually did together with a newspaper, we took a 3D model that we built for a huge VR project and turned it into something that we call scroll immersive. So you scroll through the story, but the idea is to have an immersive experience. Let me give you an example. So I just scroll down, and while I scroll down this normal website, we are flying to the airport, okay? We are maneuvering through this huge model with some additional text information, and you can just explore the entire airport, okay? Of course, you could do a video, you could write a text, but we thought it would be quite cool to have this 3D model to fly around the entire place, okay? So I can scroll up, I can scroll down, and I have an immersive experience and I get a feeling about this place, okay? And all it needs is a browser, because browsers these days can definitely cope with 3D material. Okay, that's one example that we did. And the very first one we did with Deutsche Welle was about these Uyghur Sham trails. And yet again, we built an easy 3D model. And while the story evolves, you can just scroll through and learn more about this camp and about the people inside the camp. Yet again, you do not need VR hardware. It's enough to have a browser. I will share these both examples in the chat if you like. And looking at the time, I think we're nearly already there. I must admit, we have not tackled many of the so-called news games, but nevertheless, I will share a little news games about fake news for you to learn a bit about this kind of interactive storytelling. You can play a little game here and learn something about fake news, okay? That was a little glimpse into the world of interactive storytelling. I'm happy to take some questions if you have. Anyone? Or was that too much to digest right now? Let me know in the chat. Oh, great. Yeah, Blessing shares the snowfall examples. Probably you have seen that one. Again, a scrolly telling format. So you scroll through the story. Actually, it's a long read, a long article, but enhanced through the power of multimedia storytelling. So you have videos and more. Very good example here. Thanks for that. Marcella asks, how can we fact check some of the stories from the videos? Marcella, could you elaborate a little bit on that? Which videos are you talking about, or what exactly do you want to fact check? Because fact-checking in itself is a huge topic on its own. We could definitely spend a day or two on that. I can see that I provide some fact-checking links to our shared document. Okay, about fact-checking tools. Okay. So are you talking about like these examples, for instance? How to fact check these? Because here you definitely need to believe the people. Okay, yeah, absolutely. So, okay, now I know what you're talking about. So Emmanuel just said there's this fact checking tool for amnesty. Absolutely. So let me see if I can quickly find it. It's the YouTube data viewer, right? That's a pretty cool tool. Let me just show that to you. Thanks, Emmanuel, for that. The YouTube data viewer is pretty cool if you want to fact check YouTube videos. What you do is you just paste a YouTube link here. And then what this tool does is it takes several screenshots of the video and you can do a reverse image search. So you can find out more about that. Okay. There's another question. Hi, Marcus. Are there particular type of stories that will best be told in a immersive way, or is it just any story? And what's the cost of producing a story like the one done for the Berlin airport? Yeah, absolutely. Very good question. So I think the type of stories that are suited for scrolly telling are stories that make sense when you get a feeling about the story while scrolling. Let me give you an example. I will not quickly find it, but I hope you get the idea. There's a pretty cool example where you are traveling down the sea, okay? So you're scrolling and you're diving deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper, and you're learning about animals. And while you're scrolling and you're going deeper and deeper and deeper into the sea, you find out that at the beginning, there are a lot of animals, and then suddenly you're just scrolling as it seems like forever, and you're really going down, and then you're suddenly experiencing some animals who live really, really down in the sea. So that would be a perfect example, because while scrolling, you learn something and it makes sense to scroll. In other stories, it doesn't make sense to scroll. Take, for example, the HIV story in kids. I don't see a necessity to scroll. So the overall approach would always be use the tool and the method of storytelling according to your content. Sometimes a video might be best. Sometimes a game might be a good idea. And sometimes you just want the actual news, just one sentence. 2 planes crashed into the World Trade Center. You don't want to play a game about that. You just want to have the actual news, okay? So choose wisely when choosing the medium. And concerning costs, you always have to compare, because of course it's cheaper to do an article, but when you compare these a bit more elaborate interactive formats to a television show, then it's nevertheless cheaper than doing a real television show. So I cannot tell you the exact costs here, but I can tell you that there are different ways to approach that. For instance, there are platforms like Sketchfab, where you can find a lot of 3D models. Many of them are under a Creative Commons license, so you can use them for free. So you can start building an experience with 3D objects already existing. So, of course, that's way cheaper than having someone build all the 3D elements right from the start. Okay? So I hope that answers your question. You can start with an easy set of 3D models. And of course, something super precise is way more expensive. This is why, for example, you see that the people here, they're just shadows. And of course, all of that is way cheaper than having real people sitting there. Okay? I'm really happy about your questions. So please keep them coming. If you have more questions, I'm happy at least to try answering them. Maybe while doing that, let me give you another example when it might be a good idea to apply a game, okay? Because we haven't tackled that. Okay. Okay, Jennifer asked for the link. Give me a second. That was Sketchfab. Should definitely check out that. It's not all free, but you can try and explore it. And you have to look out for Creative Commons licenses, okay? It doesn't mean just take it and do whatever you want to do, but it means you can use some of these if you follow the license model there. Okay, let's talk about the budget of the US government for a second, okay? To give you a last idea about why games might be a good idea. The budget of the US government is a hell lot of pages full of numbers. And a couple of years ago, a team came up with a little game called Budget Hero. And I really liked the idea because actually it was just a huge Excel sheet, including all the numbers of the US budget. And they made this little game platform where you could interact with the numbers. Some gamified numbers crunching, okay? So, for instance, you could decrease the military budget to 0. And suddenly you had a lot of money and you could spend it in a different form, okay? So you could just explore that and play around with it. Instead of reading hundreds and hundreds of pages of numbers. They took the entire thingy down. Let me just quickly check if it's up, because it's a pretty cool idea. Here's a link. I'm not 100% sure if this is still running, but if it is, it's a great way to experience the power of gaming in the context of storytelling and news. Okay. Great. Ladies and gentlemen, actually, I would love all of you to do me a tiny little favor at the end, just like yesterday. If you could check out the Google Doc one last time and give me and all of us your takeaway today on day 2. Just one word. That would be fantastic. Be aware that I will add a link to this document, including a link to the slides. And of course, you can always just DM me on Twitter, get in contact there. Okay? So, pretty curious about your one word takeaway on our second day of this online workshop. Okay, Jennifer, here you go. That's my Twitter handle. Okay, insightful and mind-blowing. Thanks for that. DM still closed. Well, that's a shame. I will definitely make sure to open them up right afterwards, okay? Chitonga, thanks for your feedback. Happy that you enjoyed the session. Informative and interesting insights. Very good. Jennifer learned Spark. That's Spark AR to play around with that. It's pretty simple to come up with very first augmented reality effects there. Well, that's pretty kind. Thanks a lot. Brilliant teacher taught me how to teach. Also the storyboard and writing. Thanks a lot for that. I really do appreciate this very kind feedback. Marcella writes, very insightful session. Thank you, Marcella. That was actually fun. I hope one day we can repeat something like that in real life whenever it's possible to travel again. I'd love to come over and do another session on this or that. Emotion meets information storytelling. That's a very good takeaway. Very good. Creativity. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Please keep in mind this link. I will add the slides to that by tomorrow. I will open the DMs if you have questions. And with that, I would invite all of us to enjoy a lunch and close this session. Okay? Thanks for staying with us. Hope you have a great day, great weekend, and see you in another context one day. Okay? Take care. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Marcus.
Thanks.
My name is Asha Mwilu. I am the founder and editor-at-large of Debunk Media. Debunk Media is a youth-focused independent digital media product that aims to explain the news to young people and connect the big events that impact their lives. You know, when you're thinking about starting a media business, especially when you've been a journalist, you're the storyteller. So you don't think about the business side of it. You know that exists, but you don't know the reality. So that's where I think the strength of this program lies. That, you know, the residency exposes you to training that you wouldn't have. Is amazing because you have business coaches and different ones who teach you about how to think about your audience, and not just from a storytelling perspective. How do you look at them as customers? How do you build your business around the customer, because customer is always king? How do you think about making money? what is a business model? It's a word that's always thrown around. So how do you now create your business model? What are the steps? And that begins way before you even launch your product. So that, I think, is like just, the star of the residency for me. The curriculum is really, really fun. The trainers, first and foremost, they are the people at their A game, people who understand business, people who understand media, and some of them even beyond the industry that you wouldn't have thought that you needed, but they've come in so handy. So the training is, one thing is that it usually includes like the wider community of the Innovation Center. So you also get to interact with people who are outside of the residency program. And the training is so hands-on. That's another brilliant thing about it. So it is tailored to your business. So it's not, make-believe. Let's think of a makeshift company. For me, it was let's think of Debunk. So let's actually, craft a business model for Debunk. Let's craft an audience canvas, a business canvas for Debunk Media. So it was just so informal, but also, just official, very needed. So I really liked the training approach. The other thing that I would like to talk about is the fact that the training is not rigid. So it's quite flexible. What the Innovation Center does is that the people who work at the Innovation Center tailor the training according to your needs. So for instance, I've been in mainstream media for 10 years. The Innovation Center was well aware that I didn't need a lot of training on storytelling. That's something that I can do in my sleep. However, they knew that I needed specific training that perhaps the other innovators didn't need. And so it's very flexible and tailored. I think the training that helped me the most, all of them did, to be honest. Even the training that was more of like a refresher course on the things that I knew or had read about, the one that I think had most impact on me was the financial training. So sitting down with someone and learning the accounts, as a business owner, you have to know what your finance people are doing. You have to know how the books look, what they mean, how to interpret numbers. And that I've never sat in an accounting class, I've never sat in a finance class. And that's the one where it was like, like eye-opener. And I remember just thinking to myself and even telling the trainer, Felix, that if I didn't have this training with you, I probably would have thought of learning these things 5 years down the line when it really counted. But now I don't need to wait for auditors to come and tell me there's something wrong or there's something weird happening with your company, or there's a red alert here. I can just look at financial books from my finance person and know exactly what is happening. So I think that was like one of the ones that left an impact with me. The other one was also the one-on-one sessions that I had with a business coach. So one thing that the Innovation Center does is that they identify a business coach that works with you, through this journey. So there's the class activity, the class, the workshops that you have, but then there's also this person who can call you over the weekend and tell you, did you really do this? Are you really thinking about this? I'm noticing this and that, just a really good coach. And I think that also had a big impact on me. The other one that I even thought I probably wouldn't need this is that they gave me a journalism coach. And they gave me someone who was a colleague and a peer in the industry. And I just got to discover how much you can learn from people that you don't even get the time to sit down and interact with and share your ideas with. But the Innovation Center created such a safe space for me to be able to trust in my coaches and even the journalism coach, and sitting down and bouncing ideas off of one another. And in the end, improving my product, improving the delivery of the product. And it just became really a worthwhile experience for my team and for my audiences. I had the idea to start a digital startup for a while, for a number of years. And I think like many young people who want to get into the entrepreneurial space, the one question that's always on your mind is, where am I going to get the money? It becomes even more complicated when you want to start a media idea, right? And media is one of those very sensitive industries because it's all about, public interest, independence.